Mangwana ni Malelepo Kenjani, Klekwas Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashwin Berry and Diana Master. How are you, Diana?
I'm doing well, Ashwin. How are you?
I'm fantastic.
It's a beautiful Tuesday.
It's a beautiful Tuesday.
Cloudy weather.
Cloudy weather. It's always the best.
Yes,
the best. Yes,
definitely. Now let's get into what you can expect in today's broadcast. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger withdraw from ECOWAS, accusing Bloc of Inhumane Sanctions. Thousands flee as Israeli troops advance in southern Gaza city of Yunis. And an update on South African Airways. The troubled airline returned to intercontinental travel. A little later on in the show, we'll be bringing you news from Zambia with Mr. Mike Sichula. But for now, we'll be right back with our top stories.
Welcome to My.NA Cars, your ultimate destination for everything automotive.
I am your host, Diana Master. Teamwork makes the dream work, right?
Discover the latest models, innovative technologies, and expert insights from our passionate hosts. Learn essential maintenance tips and get exclusive behind-the-scenes access to the automotive industry. Don't miss My.NA Cars on NTV every Thursday at 2100 hours. Tune in and ignite your passion for automobiles.
Let's get straight into our top stories. The military juntas in West African nations Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger jointly announced their immediate withdrawal from the Economic Community of West African States on Sunday. The juntas accused the regional economic bloc of imposing inhumane sanctions aimed at reversing recent coups in their respective countries. The joint statement, broadcast on state television in all three nations, asserted that the decision to withdraw was made in complete sovereignty, alleging that ECOWAS had deviated from the ideals of its founding fathers and Pan-Africanism after nearly 50 years of existence. The juntas contended that ECOWAS, influenced by foreign powers, had become a threat to its member states and their populations.
Now, as the conflict escalates in the southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis, thousands of Palestinians are evacuating towards Rafah near the Egyptian border, carrying whatever belongings they can. Israeli troops have ordered residents to leave a downtown area that includes Nasser Hospital and two smaller medical facilities. Approximately 1.5 million, or two-thirds of Gaza's population, are now crowded into shelters and 10 camps in and around Rafah, where safety remains elusive due to ongoing Israeli strikes. The offensive in Gaza has caused extensive destruction in the northern territory, with Israel claiming to have largely dismantled Hamas. According to the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency, around 1.7 million people have been displaced within Gaza, primarily from the heavily affected northern regions. The health ministry in Gaza reports over 26,000 casualties, including both fatalities and injuries, since the October 7 attack in southern Israel that triggered the conflict.
Yes, indeed. Another interesting detail is that the conflict actually started about 70 years ago, but it's what triggered the wave of this conflict. And it's interesting that Israel says it has dismantled most of Hamas. So why do the attacks continue in spite of the recommendations from the International Court of Justice? That's a question on everyone's minds. Do let us know what you think in our social media as we move over to next door. South African Airways, once a giant African aviation, is back in the intercontinental market, but there are still doubts about its financial viability. It had disappeared from our skies altogether in September 2020, having fallen victim not just to COVID, but also another disease that has plagued some other state-run carriers: corruption and mismanagement. It may be on the verge of a sale that would see a private consortium take a majority share in the business. However, its handling of finances has recently come in for severe criticism by the country's public spending watchdog. In a scathing report, Auditor General Tsakani Malukileke said the financial statements SAA had drawn up dating from 2018 to 2019 financial year lacked credibility. The airline recorded losses in the 4 years from 2018 of a staggering $1.2 billion US.
Now, still in South Africa, a controversial auction of about 70 personal items of South Africa's anti-apartheid hero Nelson Mandela, including his hearing aids, walking sticks and reading glasses, has been suspended. Excuse me. New York-based Guernsey's auction house wrote on its website, "Mandela, the auction suspended," without giving a reason, but it follows an outcry in South Africa. Mandela's eldest daughter, Makaziwe Mandela, planned to sell the items at an auction on the 22nd of February, saying she wanted to use the money to build a memorial garden in his honor near his burial site. The state South African Heritage Resources Agency challenged her decision in court but lost the case. It said it would appeal against the ruling. South Africa's Arts and Culture Minister Zizi Kodwa said that blocking the sale was necessary as Mandela is integral to South Africa's heritage. Mandela's grandson Ndaba was quoted by local media as saying he too was opposed to the auction. Mandela's ID book was also among the items listed for sale. Mandela died in 2013 at the age of 95 after being in prison for nearly 30 years for fighting white minority rule, and became South Africa's first black president in 1994.
And in the loss of our top stories, the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum will give back gold and silver artifacts looted during colonial times from Ghana's Asante Royal Court, the museums and the palace said on Thursday. The Ghana agreement for a long-term loan of the items comes as international momentum grows for museums and institutions to restore African artifacts from former colonial powers, Britain, France, Germany, and Belgium. That's very interesting. You see, it's you steal something and then you loan it back. Gotta love how we do restitution these days. All right, those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. We get more news from Zambia this time as Max Sichula joins us.
Neo Paints has established a 67-year Namibian legacy, creating personalized paint solutions that blend quality and innovation for the Namibian people. We pride ourselves in being a 100% Namibian-owned company, investing in our country and our people by employing and empowering true Namibians. With every brushstroke, Neo Paints commits to our quality guarantee and always delivering a coat of excellence. At Neo Paints, we always stay true to our country. We are as Namibian as you.
All right, as promised, we're going to be crossing over to Mike Sichula in Zambia. Mike Odibwanji.
Diribwino Moribwanji, Africa, good morning to our dear viewers.
Good morning indeed. Now, Zambia's economy is projected to grow, and as you let me know before the show, Mike, it's not because of the lobola I paid. To give us the details.
Thank you very much. Yes, indeed, the International Monetary Fund country representative, Mr. Eric Root, has projected a 4.7 economic growth for Zambia in this year. So this is against the 4.3 growth recorded last year. Mr. Luster says Zambia's economic growth this year shall be triggered by the anticipated opening of production at Konkola Copper Mine and Mopani Copper Mines. So these two copper mines have not been fully operational in the last 2 years or so, and their non-productive has also contributed to the depreciation of the local currency against the United States dollar. So this was during the IMF country representative spoke during an interaction with some Zambian economic think tanks just right here in Lusaka, Zambia. So this development, this projection by the IMF has triggered a lot of commentaries from members of the governing party, as well as those who are in the opposition, who are accusing the current administration of failing to handle the economic downturn, especially with the depreciation of the kwacha, which has hit the record high, where 127 kwacha buys you $1 United States dollar, which was not the case when the previous administration was in power. And the current president, Mr. Hakainde Hichilema, did promise that the currency is going to be stable, but in the last couple of months, the currency has not been stable. So this projection of the 4.7 economic growth that the IMF is projecting seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel in terms of revamping the Zambian economy.
All right, now, Mr. Sichula, we do understand that we've been speaking about the cholera outbreak in Zambia. So now it seems that authorities will be establishing mobile cholera hospitals in order to contain the outbreak. Do tell us more.
Yes, this is a measure to ensure that more people who contract the disease in communities are treated right there and then. Because what has been happening, like I have been saying, there is stigma, number one. The number two, access to roads in these communities is proving difficult. And also some taxi drivers or vehicle owners, when they are told that you need to pick up someone who has contracted cholera or has got symptoms of cholera, most of these transporters are refusing. So you end up having a patient being treated within the whole house environment, and that person dies. Because most of the cases that have been reported in Zambia, they are like brought-in dead cases. So government intends to set up mobile cholera hospitals in the country to accelerate the treatment of cholera at community level. This is according to Health Minister Chuba Maseo, who says this, that she led the ministry and other dignitaries on a cholera sensitization in one of the densely populated compounds, Chawama. So Ms. Maseo says, has also appealed to retired nurses to come on board as government reinforces the treatment of cholera patients. So in terms of deaths so far, the country has recorded more than 550 deaths, which is the record high in terms of the outbreak. The last time Zambia had the cholera outbreak between 2017 and 2018, numbers of people dying from the disease did not rise as high as what we have seen. Because in terms of people having contracted the disease, it is more than 12,000, which is a source of concern. So they have done all they are doing in terms of giving free clean water to people, cleaning and closing up places that are not habitable. Like one of the cases that the Minister of Health did, she closed a police station which was not in good shape. And you can imagine there were inmates there. And that case is one of those that the government seems to be working on. But the issues of bringing up mobile hospitals is one of those that is going to accelerate the treatment of patients.
Certainly worrisome. And, one would have hoped that, after the way the government had to be on its toes during COVID-19, they might have been able to just pick up from there with regards to response, but things don't always correlate that way. And we certainly hope that this issue can be sorted out. Now, a delegation from Tanzania is in Zambia on a mission to understand best practices of implementing national developmental projects. Would you please tell us more?
Yes, a delegation from Tanzania has toured constituency development fund projects in Zambia. So, Zambia has been implementing, the current administration is implementing decentralization, where local communities are projecting what they want to be done in their constituencies. So the constituency development fund is a fund that is given to constituencies. So far, about 30 million kwacha is given to constituencies for them to advance development. So the officials led by the revolutionary government of Zanzibar Permanent Secretary Isam Salam seeks to benchmark their own CDF programs back in Tanzania. So the delegation was accompanied during a tour by Chilanga Secretary Grayson Sakara. The delegation tour of CDF projects in Chilanga districts marks the 5-day visit to Zambia aimed at appreciating the implementation of CDF communities. So it is hoped that the Tanzanian delegation has taken leaf of what they think, that when funds are given to a local community, then this local community can use such funds to develop their communities. One of the examples that I would give is that using the CDF communities, President Hakainde Hichilema has directed that no child should sit under the floor. So meaning most of the funds, some of the funds have been used to make desks for schools, and this has greatly improved in terms of schools having desks, among other developmental projects.
All right, now Mr. Sichula, finally, what is the latest update on a tribal grouping that seeks to separate from mainland Zambia? As briefly as you can, please, Mr. Sichula.
So what the latest in this case is that the Zambia police has been issuing call-outs to a group that those youths in the picture. They did issue a call-out that they should report to police for questioning. but later the call out was cancelled due to unexplained reasons. So this group has continued to pressure the current administration that the Rosi-speaking people should secede and have their own state called the Baloserant. So it is something that is a thorny discussion, and also government has moved in military personnel into the area to kind of like make a statement that they will not allow anyone to get involved in these talks of seceding from Zambia, because Zambia is a unitary state, including Baroseland into Zambia. So it is something that is a tense situation in the region, and authorities are keeping an eye to ensure that law and order prevails.
Yes, there was a similar story in Namibia, Mike, and a lot of those people are in prison for treason right now. So I do think those folks do need to explain themselves as well as their hats. Thank you, Mike, for bringing us the new stories from Zambia.
Thank you very much. Africa, good morning to our dear viewers.
Africa, good morning indeed. Let's head to the weather. Getting into some quick economic news updates. In a transformative effort to address the persistent issue of insufficient electricity in Kinshasa, the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Chinese companies, particularly Senior Hydro, have played a pivotal role in constructing the Zongo 2 hydroelectric power plant with an impressive installed capacity of 150 megawatts.
Now, Kenya's Court of Appeal on Friday refused to extend the stay that had allowed the government to continue collecting a 1.5% levy to fund affordable housing, despite a lower court having found the measure unconstitutional. The levy was part of a finance law adopted in June that also doubled the value-added tax on fuel and increased the top income tax rate.
Those have been our economic news stories. We're going to swing over to the indicators just before Ari shows up with the sport. All right, getting into sports news, there's currently a hot debate on the money that has been allocated to Namibia's Brave Warriors after their historic win at AFCON, historic win progression rather, up into the group of 16. They're being promised 50,000 Namibian dollars. Just for some perspective, when they won the COSAFA Cup in 2017, all the inflation happened, COVID happened, they also got 50,000. So is there a difference between COSAFA and AFCON? We don't know, but we'll be seeing your comments under the video as we get to know what you think about that matter. But for now, let's look at the rest of the AFCON results. Ivory Coast having a magical time. At some point, they thought they were out. In fact, they fired their coach before this game where they had lost 4-0. But they managed to win on penalties, beating Senegal, who are the current champions, the former champions, and they are out. Cape Verde, the country of just 800,000 people, still progressing. The star boys of the tournament 1-0 as they got the best of Mauritania. The rest of the results you would have seen. Egypt unfortunately lost to DR Congo in penalties. Equatorial Guinea, that red card cost them 1-0 to Guinea. And then tonight it's Mali versus Burkina Faso. They certainly, they're united in political terms. We'll see what that looks like on the pitch. And Morocco versus South Africa is determined to be a cracker. Here's Ari Hohad.
Good day everyone, time for international sports news, and starting off with soccer news first. It's FA Cup round 5 action that will follow on the 28th of February. Still a few round 4 games that needs to be played in the FA Cup, and already confirmed for the 28th of February is some of the Premiership teams playing against each other. Firstly, it is Luton Town that's got a tough assignment. They will play the defending champions, that is Manchester City at home, and that's on the 28th of February. And then Bournemouth, they will play against Leicester City, and Wolverhampton versus Brighton. Some of the other games confirmed for the 5th round of the FA Cup. A few games to be played still. It is Liverpool that's already through to the 5th round. They await the winners of Watford playing against Southampton. So that game will be played on the 6th of February. That will be a home game for Liverpool in the 5th round. Also, Chelsea and Aston Villa, two big clubs in the Premier League that play on the 7th of February. That is still a round 4 game, and they will have a home game, whoever wins, against Leeds or Plymouth, and they will play on the 6th of February. So lots of action in the FA Cup still to come. Round 5 games scheduled for the 28th of February. And continuing on to cricket news, and a great performance by the South African women's team, the South African women's Proteas team. They beat Australia in the second T20 game that was played in Australia, and it's the first time ever that South Africa the women's team beat Australia in white ball cricket in 23 previous games over a few seasons. And it was the first T20 game that Australia won. The second one won by South Africa by 6 wickets. It was Australia that batted first, 142 for the loss of 6 wickets in their allotted 20 overs. Then South Africa scoring 144 for the loss of 4 wickets. And the big run scorers for South Africa, Laura Wolfhard, the captain, she scored 58 unbeaten runs from 53 deliveries. And then also opening batsman Tasman Brits, a great performance, 41 runs off just 28 deliveries. She helped the South African team to get off to a good start. The third and final T20 game in that series will be played on Tuesday, and that will be played in Hobart. Staying with cricket, 2 exciting test match series that continue. The first one is England that play against India. They play the series in India. It was England that dramatically won the first test that was played, the first out of 5 tests, and it is the second test that will be played in Visakhapatnam, and that will start on Friday. And then also it is Australia that hosts the West Indies. They've played 2 test matches. It was West Indies that won dramatically also the second test by 8 runs, and now they play a one-day series. Firstly, it will be 50 overs, one-day games, 3 of them. The first one will also be played on Friday. And to conclude today's international sports news, it is American football news, or it is gridiron as they call it. The Super Bowl final will be played on the 11th of February in Las Vegas, and it is a Super Bowl 58. It will be a repeat of the 2023 final. It will again be the Kansas City Chiefs, the defending champion, and they will play against the San Francisco 49ers, and that will be played in Las Vegas on the 11th of February. That's our international sports news for today. Hope you have a great sport day, and we talk international sport again tomorrow. Goodbye.
You're watching Africa Good Morning. If you're just joining us, here are the news highlights. Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger withdraw from ECOWAS, accusing Bloc of Inhumane Sanctions. Thousands flee as Israeli troops advance in southern Gaza city of Khan Yunis. Kenyan protesters demand end to femicide and call for urgent action. And an update on South African Airways, troubled airline returns to intercontinental travel.
Those have been our stories on Africa Good Morning with Diana Master and Ashwin Betty Surajaganaga.